Good evening. Welcome to Northern Maine Productions. We're in the workshop. We're taking a look at some deck parts here for the Snapper 30083 restoration project. Yesterday, I dismantled this deck. I did a video on this deck. This is the original deck from the 30083, and we talked about how the drop center down in here is rusted extremely bad on both sides. And on the bottom side of it too. You know, that deck sat out in the woods for 30 years, right full of debris. Moisture has obviously got to it. Well, I talked in my video yesterday about taking the deck from the 2650, which was not the original deck shell to that machine at all. This is a replacement. I would say probably this was a new stock deck shell when it was put on that machine. I don't know where the guy would have gotten it from. He must have got it from the dealer that used to be in Holton. But this deck, what I had talked about in my video yesterday, I had talked about cutting the center section out of this deck and putting it into this one. Once I got this deck off of the machine and got a closer look at it, I realized that I had done a little bit better job at fixing the front of this last summer than I thought. I did get it relatively straight, but as you can see, it's got some bumps in it. It's got some rock bumps in it from I've hit some rocks bad with this thing, and so had the previous owner. You know, you don't have any of that on that deck. That deck there is all nice and flat. But after sleeping on this and thinking about it, I think I'm going to take a hammer and dolly to this one and try to flatten this all out and straighten this out the best that I can. And I think that I can take my grinder with a cutoff wheel, and I'm pretty sure that I can cut these welds and take these skids off of this deck and weld them back onto that one. This deck never had any skids on it. There used to be a little guard that went in along the discharge chute there, but the only difference that I can see between this deck here and this one here is these two additional holes that I believe have been drilled to accommodate that that engagement handle from the 26-inch machine. Everything else is identical. The drop center is in significantly better shape. There's very little minor rusting down in there. The bottom side of this, as you can see, has still got red paint on it. This deck's not very rusty. There was a little bit back there in the back corner by the discharge. Down in here, I patched it up last summer. That needs a little bit of work still, but I think that that deck is probably still good enough that I could take a hammer and dolly and flatten that thing out and make it look halfway decent. These edges in along here need a little more work. This is where it was cracked, right here where I was talking about. I actually did weld that on the bottom side. It was cracked in both of these slots. But I guess that's a little minor. I thought it was up a little higher into the deck, but I can tell you one thing though, the lift mechanism was considerably different off that 2650. That lift mechanism is right there, and it comes off as one unit. The whole thing is welded together, and you cannot It's welded together here. The other one's bolted together, so you can't change any of the individual parts on this lift, which is pretty strange. The mandrel's alright, I kept that. This stuff's alright. The blade's in very good shape off that 2650. Nothing wrong with that at all. So yeah, this is going to be a work in progress. It's going to be a few days probably before I get any significant work done to this, but so I can tell you one thing right now, I'm getting kind of tired. I've put in a lot of hours here in the last few days and my back has been bothering me quite bad, so I'm probably going to take a little bit of a breather from this for a while just to get my back recouped a little. Lifting and tugging on these big heavy parts like this hurts bad. So, but yes, the old machine is right here. This is the old 30083 that I've been restoring all for this spring. I mowed my whole lawn with that the other day and it worked really good. Well, I had talked about, I didn't really want to do away with this original deck shell because it's original to the machine. Well, there ain't any difference in them. That one's the same deck. It's the same identical part. Other than the skids, and I can add them on there and I can make it exactly the way that it was from the factory. I am happy that I actually got to mow the lawn once with this original deck, but that thing is just, it's in really rough shape. It's a little too far gone for my liking. Even though that it's solid here, it's still pitted horrifically bad, and it's gonna look bad when it's painted. Kind of 6 of one and half a dozen of the other one. I mean, this one's not pitted as bad, but this one's got dings and dents out through it everywhere. That poor old deck right there has been abused some bad. I think it probably saw quite a lot of abuse before I ever got it, but I know of one time I was across the road helping my neighbor, and I always kept forgetting that this deck hung a little lower on this machine than the previous one that I had run, and geez, crow, I was going across his field over there. The grass wasn't very heavy, and I had it right in high gear going just as fast as it would go, and I hit a friggin' tree root sticking up out of the ground, and I'm telling you what, that made a horrendous smash. I folded the front edge of that deck right under when I hit that, and that's when all this happened here. The blade actually hit the front of that deck. It hit it bad. I mean, I've hammered it some and straightened it out, but stalled the machine right out when I hit. So I was so mad at that day, because this deck did look really good until that happened. But anyways, this one needs a little attention, especially where the lift rails were bolted on there. It's a little bit scaly there, but that's good though, because once the rails are bolted back on there, you won't ever see the scale again. You won't ever see any of these pit marks that are going to certainly be there. And you'll never see any of this underneath here because it's all covered. But stay tuned. I'm sorry, but if I'm kind of all over the place of where I want to do with this, because I'm really kind of scratching my head myself. I mean, I think that's a solid plan. I think that's a good solid plan to fix this deck shell right here. I don't think there's any need of cutting them apart. Trying to cut the center out of this one. I'll hang on to this original deck shell. I'll probably stow it up overhead here or something in the shop, but I'm definitely not going to throw it away. But well, anyways, I guess that's just a quick little update. I got a lot of work to do here. I still got to descale and derust all these pieces and parts that go to that deck so I can put it back together. I'll have a few hours worth of work in this for sure. There's no question about that. I'll probably have, I bet you I'll have 3 to 4 hours in just cleaning this stuff up, what that's on the floor here. And probably that much again straightening that deck out. But I think this will all be worth it in the end. I think that's going to make a really good mower when it's done. So, well, anyways, I guess that's it. You all have a good evening. Bye bye.